Hello.
I hadn't planned on coming home for the summer. I told myself I'd stay on campus, find a job, take a few summer credits to lighten the load for senior year. But then my roommate sublet our apartment without telling me, and my advisor left for vacation without signing off on my classes. Everything just kind of fell through. So I packed up my car and drove back to the house I hadn't lived in since high school. Back to the narrow streets, the soft buzz of cicadas, and the scent of cut grass and old trees. My mom was on another work trip. Her job always seemed to send her to a conference just when I came home. But the house wouldn't be empty. Olivia was there, my mom's old college roommate, who'd moved in a year ago after her divorce. She had needed a fresh start, and we had a spare room. It was supposed to be temporary, but a year later, she was still there. I didn't mind. Back when I was in high school, she was just Miss Olivia, the artsy, slightly mysterious woman who only visited once a year, always with cool earrings and bare feet, the one who brought fancy chocolate and smelled like patchouli and orange peel. She'd hang out with my mom in the kitchen for hours, talking and laughing while drinking wine out of mason jars. But now she wasn't a visitor. She was part of the house. And when I walked in with my bag over my shoulder and the screen door clicked shut behind me, it was her voice I heard first, not my mom's. "You're early." I turned and saw her at the top of the stairs, holding a mug in one hand and wearing a loose white t-shirt and leggings. Her hair was tied up with a pencil, a smudge of something, charcoal or flour, I couldn't tell, on her wrist. "Yeah," I said. "Didn't hit any traffic." She smiled. "You look different." "So do you," I said before I could stop myself. Her eyes held mine for just a beat longer than I expected. Then she laughed lightly and walked down the stairs. "Welcome home." The word stuck with me, home. I wasn't sure if that's what this place was anymore, but the way she said it made it feel like maybe it could be. We moved around each other easily those first few days. She showed me where the coffee filters were now, joked about how the washing machine had developed a personality, and warned me not to eat the cookies in the blue tin unless I wanted to chip a tooth. She was funny and light and somehow always around, but never intrusive. Still, something felt different. It was in the way her eyes followed me sometimes when she thought I wasn't looking, in how her voice dropped a little lower when we were alone, in how she sat across from me at the kitchen table, her bare foot brushing mine under the table but never moving away. And me? I was noticing things I hadn't before. The way her laugh sounded in the quiet parts of the house. The way she pulled her sweater sleeves over her hands when she was cold. The way she never turned on the overhead lights, preferring lamps and candles that made everything feel softer, warmer. I told myself I was imagining it. She was just being nice. That's who she was, right? But then came the night I couldn't sleep. It was one of those heavy summer nights where the air feels too still, too thick. I got out of bed, wandered into the kitchen for water. The house was dark except for a single lamp in the living room. She was there, sitting cross-legged on the couch in a long shirt, reading. She looked up when I entered. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "Not really." She scooted over slightly, patting the cushion next to her. "Join the club." I sat, trying not to look directly at the bare skin of her thighs where the shirt didn't quite cover. She offered me half her blanket without saying anything, and we sat like that for a while. Just the two of us in a silent house, the only sound the hum of the refrigerator and the soft turning of pages. "I used to hate summers," she said suddenly, "when I was your age." "Why?" She looked at me for a long moment. Too much time to think. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded. She leaned her head back against the couch and closed her eyes. "You're not a kid anymore," she said quietly. The words landed with more weight than I expected. "I guess I'm not." She opened her eyes and looked at me. Really looked. "Yeah," she said, almost to herself. "You're definitely not." The air shifted again, just slightly. I got up first, said goodnight, and retreated to my room. But I didn't sleep. Not really. Not after that look. Not after those words. And I started to wonder, if this wasn't just kindness, what was it? The next day passed like a dream I couldn't wake from. Too slow, too bright, too strange to be real. I mowed the lawn, helped reattach a sagging curtain rod in the living room, and reorganized some old boxes in the garage. Anything to keep my hands busy. Anything to avoid thinking about the way she'd looked at me the night before. But thinking about it was inevitable. I saw her at lunch, moving through the kitchen in that usual graceful way, barefoot again, hair still damp from a shower. She wore a loose olive tank top and jean shorts, her reading glasses perched low on her nose as she flipped through a magazine. When I walked in, she didn't look up at first, just sipped her iced coffee and hummed along to some soft tune playing through her phone speaker. "Sandwiches in the fridge," she said. "Thanks." She finally glanced over the top of her glasses. "You okay? You look like you didn't sleep." I forced a shrug. "Just the heat." She nodded like she knew better. "It's always the heat." That afternoon, she disappeared into her art room, what used to be the sunroom before she claimed it with her easel, stacked canvases, and watercolor jars. The door stayed mostly shut, only opening when she'd step out, stretch, and refill her tea. By early evening, I felt restless. I couldn't focus on anything. I tried reading, scrolling, walking, but none of it helped. Eventually, I ended up lying on my bed, staring at the ceiling fan slowly circling above me. The house was quiet. Mom still gone, Olivia somewhere out of sight. That hum of tension in the walls hadn't left since last night. Then I heard footsteps, not hurried, just intentional. They moved down the hall, paused briefly, and then stopped. At my door. I sat up just as the doorknob turned, and she stepped in. She didn't knock. She didn't hesitate. She walked in like she had every right to be there. Her hair was down now, slightly wavy from the day's humidity. She wore an oversized gray button-up shirt, only half done at the front, with soft lounge shorts beneath. She looked calm, effortless, like this wasn't strange at all. I froze. "Hey," I said, voice too soft, too confused. She tilted her head slightly. "Hey." We just stood there, staring. Then she said it. "Lock the door behind you." My heart kicked hard in my chest. "What?" She glanced past me, toward the door I hadn't yet closed. "If you're going to stay, lock the door." The room shrank. Or maybe it was just my breath shortening. I stepped back slowly, closing the door without a sound. The click of the lock echoed louder than it should have. I turned to face her. "What are you doing?" She took 2 slow steps closer. "I don't know." The air between us was impossibly charged. I could feel the energy pulsing in every inch of the room, like we'd been circling a fire for days, and she'd finally stepped into it. "I was in here earlier," she said, voice low, "looking for that old fan. The one your mom used to keep in the closet." I nodded, even though I couldn't think clearly enough to remember if that fan even still existed. "And she glanced down at her bare feet. "I don't know." I sat on the bed. "And I didn't leave." "Why?" She looked back up, eyes steady now. Because I didn't want to. I swallowed hard. She crossed her arms. Not defensively, just wrapping herself in thought. You've been walking around like you're not sure who you are in this house, she said. But I see you. Her words hit something inside me I hadn't named. I see how you look at me now, she continued, and how you don't look away fast enough. I wasn't trying to. I know, she said, interrupting gently. That's what makes it worse. I didn't know what to do with my hands. I let them fall to my sides. I thought maybe I was imagining it, she said. But last night, the way you looked at me, the way you didn't say anything when I said you weren't a kid, I stepped closer without realizing it. Because I didn't disagree. She met my eyes, and there was something open there, vulnerable, honest. I know I shouldn't be here, she whispered. Then why are you? Because I'm tired of pretending I don't feel what I feel. The silence that followed was deafening. No cars outside. No ticking clock. Just her breath and mine, both uneven, both waiting for something to tip the scale. I moved to the edge of the bed and sat, leaving distance between us. She mirrored me. We didn't touch. We didn't lean. We just sat, close enough to feel the warmth, but not enough to cross the line. And then she said, "Tell me if you want me to leave." I looked at her, really looked, and shook my head. I don't. Her shoulders dropped slightly, like she'd been holding tension for too long. Okay, she said. She turned her body just slightly toward me. I could feel the shift, the tilt, the gravity. But I need you to understand something, she added. This isn't some game to me. This isn't just because I'm bored or lonely or flattered. I nodded. I know. And I'm not looking for something I can't explain tomorrow. I held her gaze. Then don't explain it. She smiled faintly. We sat in that space between decision and action. Two people wrapped in the quiet of everything unsaid. There were no sudden moves, no declarations, just a shared understanding that nothing would be the same after this. And we both knew it had already begun. We didn't move for a long time. The room was still, filled only with the quiet tick of the ceiling fan and the low hum of the night pressing against the windows. The walls around us held their breath, and so did I. Olivia sat beside me on the edge of the bed, her hands resting on her knees, her eyes fixed on a spot on the floor like it held all the answers. I glanced at her, unsure what to say, afraid to say too much or not enough. Finally, she broke the silence. I think I've been pretending for longer than I realized. Her voice was soft, but it didn't shake. Pretending what? I asked. That I didn't notice the change. That you were still just some kid dragging a duffel bag through the hallway, always asking where the cereal was kept. She looked over at me. But that's not who you are anymore. Not even close. I didn't speak. Couldn't. The way she looked at me, steady, unguarded, made it hard to breathe. I used to hear your footsteps, she continued. At night, when you'd come down for water or wander around because you couldn't sleep. I'd be in the kitchen sometimes, pretending to read or clean something just to stay up. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself I was just watching over the house. She gave a soft, almost bitter laugh. But I was watching you. There was a pause that filled the entire room. She reached for the edge of her shirt and twisted the fabric in her fingers. I shouldn't be saying this, she whispered. Then why are you? Because I don't want to lie anymore. She turned toward me slightly. Her knee brushed mine. Light, unintentional, but she didn't move away. If anything, she leaned into the contact, like grounding herself with it. There's a part of me, she said, that still thinks I'm making a mistake, that the age gap means something it shouldn't, that I'm just projecting emotions onto a quiet house and an attentive young man who happens to be around when I'm feeling vulnerable. She looked up at me then. Her eyes didn't waver. But there's another part that sees how you look at me. The way your jaw tightens when I walk by. The way you hesitate before answering when I ask how you're really doing. The way you don't flinch when we're alone. That part of me knows this isn't just about me. It's about you too. I swallowed, throat dry. It is. That was all I could say. Her face softened. Not into a smile, but into something more real. Something more raw. I don't know what this is, she said, or what it means, but it's not pretend. Not for me. I shifted toward her, close enough now that our arms brushed. I never looked at you like a stranger, I said. Even back when I was a kid, you weren't just Mom's friend. You were the person I watched from the doorway, wondering why the room always felt calmer when you were in it. She blinked, caught off guard. And now? She asked, barely audible. Now, I said. I walk into the house and look for your car in the driveway before I even check if Mom's back. That made her laugh, but it was the kind of laugh you give when you're holding something delicate in your chest. I've felt crazy these past few days, she murmured, trying to convince myself the air wasn't thick every time we passed in the hallway. That your silence wasn't saying something. It was. Her hand shifted slightly, brushing mine. She didn't grab it, didn't hold it. Just let her fingers rest there. I don't want this to be some late-night mistake, she said. Some impulsive moment we bury and never speak of again. It's not, I said. It couldn't be. She nodded slowly. I'm scared, she confessed. Not of you, but of what this could mean. How it changes everything. It already has, I said. That hung between us for a moment, true and irreversible. Her thumb moved gently, tracing the side of my hand. It was the first real touch, not accidental, not hidden in subtext. We didn't kiss. We didn't fall into each other like a scene from a movie. We just sat there, shoulders touching, fingers laced slowly, deliberately. The kind of touch that doesn't rush, that waits to be sure, that asks and answers in silence. I'm tired of being the responsible one, she said, voice barely above a whisper. The one who's always careful, always safe. You don't have to be that with me, I said. She turned her head toward me. You're younger than me, and you're the first person who's made me feel like I belong somewhere. She closed her eyes, just for a second, like trying to keep herself from unraveling. Do you know what this means? She asked. No, I admitted, but I know what it doesn't mean. She raised an eyebrow. It doesn't mean I'll disappear. It doesn't mean this is just about tonight. And it doesn't mean I see you as anyone other than exactly who you are. She leaned her forehead gently against my shoulder. Not dramatic, not seductive, just real. I'm going to make tea, she said after a while. Because if I stay here, I'll keep talking, and I'm not ready to go any further. Tea sounds good. She stood, and I let go of her hand, watching as she moved toward the door. But before she opened it, she paused and looked back at me. I meant it, she said, about locking the door. I know. She smiled, then stepped out, leaving the room quieter than before, but not emptier. Not anymore. I woke to the smell of coffee. It wasn't just the scent that pulled me out of sleep, but the warmth of it. Like it had filled the hallway, drifted through the crack beneath my door, and settled quietly over my bed. I opened my eyes slowly. The room was filled with pale morning light, the kind that makes everything feel softer, quieter, less certain. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then I remembered. The lock clicking shut, the way her voice had sounded in the dark, the weight of her fingers resting on mine. I sat up slowly, unsure what to expect now. The house didn't sound different. No sudden shift in the walls. No alarms. Just birdsong outside the window and the soft creak of cabinet doors from the kitchen. I pulled on a t-shirt, ran a hand through my hair, and stepped out. She was there, of course. Olivia stood by the sink, wearing a long cream-colored cardigan that brushed the backs of her knees, the sleeves pushed up to her elbows. Her hair was pulled into a loose bun, a few strands falling along her neck. She looked the way she always did in the morning, calm, barefoot, slightly sleepy. She turned as I entered and offered a small smile. "Morning." "Hey." She held up a second mug without asking, as if the routine had already been written. I stepped closer. The silence between us wasn't tense. It wasn't awkward. It was aware. We moved through the motions like we'd done it for years. Coffee poured, toast in the toaster, plates set out. But each glance carried new weight. Each moment held something just beneath the surface. "You sleep okay?" she asked. I nodded. "Yeah." "You?" She shrugged gently. "Eventually." I leaned against the counter beside her. "Thanks for the tea." She looked at me sideways, smiling just a little. It helped more than I thought it would. Neither of us said anything else for a while. The kitchen light was off. Morning sun poured through the windows, catching on the steam rising from our mugs. I watched as she reached for the butter and spread it over toast, her movements slow, practiced. It would have been so easy to pretend nothing had happened. But nothing about us was pretend anymore. "I've been thinking," she said finally. "About last night?" She nodded. "About all of it. And—" She turned toward me, both hands around her coffee mug. "It doesn't feel like a mistake, but it does feel fragile." I understood what she meant. The moment wasn't something you could explain. Not to others. Maybe not even to yourself. It had to be felt. Carefully. Honestly. "I'm not trying to break anything," I said. Her eyes held mine. "I know." We moved to the table. The same one we'd shared so many breakfasts at over the years. But this time I saw every detail differently. The scrape on the wood from a dropped plate, the ring left by a mug that never quite got wiped clean. All the ordinary pieces of a house that had quietly become a home. She sat across from me. "I've always been the one who waits, the one who holds the line, the adult in the room. And last night, you didn't want to be? I wanted to feel seen," she said simply. I let that sit, because I got it, maybe more than I should have. "You weren't just seen," I said. "You were heard, felt." Her expression softened. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Of course." "What happens now?" I thought about it, about how easily this could turn into something reckless or something hidden. But that wasn't what I wanted. Not with her. "I don't think this needs to be defined right away," I said. "But I do think it deserves to be treated like it's real." She exhaled slowly, like that answer had let her breathe again. "You're more grounded than I expected," she murmured. "You're more open than I thought you'd let yourself be." She smiled faintly and reached across the table, her fingers brushing mine again. Not as a question this time, but as an echo. "I don't regret anything," she said. "Neither do I." She squeezed my hand gently, then let go. After breakfast, she cleaned up while I watered the plants on the porch. We didn't speak much, but the silence wasn't empty anymore. It was full of meaning, full of everything that had passed between us. In the afternoon, she asked if I wanted to go to the farmer's market with her. Like nothing had changed, like everything had. I said yes. She tossed me her spare keys and told me to drive. Later, when we got back, she paused in the doorway, one hand resting on the frame. "I like the way you walk into a room now," she said. "Why?" "Because you look like you know you belong in it." That night, I heard her footsteps pass my door again. But this time they didn't stop. They kept walking soft, measured, disappearing down the hall. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the echo of her voice still in my mind. "Lock the door behind you." It wasn't a command. It was a trust fall, a way of saying, "I'm here. If you are too, make it real." And I had. We both had. And whatever came next, we'd face it from the same side of the door. Together.
Bye bye.